Hello everyone, my name is Katie and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I'm going to be doing a countdown of my favorite music releases for 2022. So the world is coming to an end, the year is coming to an end, and I feel like it's time to reflect on the entire year of 2022 and talk about my favorite things that were released this year. It was a great year for music. I feel like pretty much every band caught up from the COVID situation the last couple of years. This was the year that we got the most new, fresh music. 2021 was decent. It was a little bit of a comeback, but 2022 was just a hard-hitting year for music, especially in the rock and metal world. So this is going to be like a little countdown of sorts. I'm going to have some honorable mentions in here. Most of them are going to be albums, but some of it's going to be just like singles and EPs and stuff, but I'm trying to mostly keep it like my top albums of 2022. Please excuse my voice. I'm still sick. I don't know what's going on. I've been sick for weeks. I had something, it sort of went away for a week, and then I got something right after Thanksgiving, so I'm just a mess right now. I just can't get it together, but I really want to come on here and make a video, so I'm just gonna deal with it. You guys better deal with it too. Just kidding. All of the albums and the EPs that I'm going to be talking about are things that I spent a lot of my time listening to this year. Plenty of stuff came out, but these are the ones that I really spent the most time on, and the things that sort of stuck with me and I think are going to be some of my favorite albums from here on out. First, let's start off with the Impera album from Ghost. So that album was really what I was looking forward to in 2022. All year throughout 2021, I was hoping Ghost would release an album. They kept saying they were going to release an album. First it was I think December 2020, and then it got pushed to winter 2021, and then it finally happened in the early 2022. I think it came out in March 2022, so it was almost spring. Whatever, it felt like it took so long, but I was so happy when this album came out. It was everything I wanted and more. So first we got the teaser of Call Me Little Sunshine, the first single released from the album, and I'll be honest, the first time I ever heard it, my impression was I can tell this is a radio rock song. They definitely made this catchy, easily digestible song for the radio, which Ghost is really good at doing that. They're really smart. They don't talk about the devil and stuff like that in these songs, and they try to keep them kind of simple, not too heavy, just right there in the middle. And that song has honestly grown on me so much. It has such a nice, catchy riff. I love playing that riff on guitar. It's one of my favorite things to play on guitar ever. That one song has grown on me a lot, and I feel like it let me know that this album was going to hit really hard. And then the next single that came out, I think, was 20s, and it was this reggaeton metal beat. If you watch Tobias Forge talk about how he came up with the idea of the vocal delivery and the beat of that song, he got the inspiration from watching a Brazilian reggaeton artist on TV, so I just thought that was really interesting. It was very different for Ghost. It made me kind of excited because I don't really like when bands always release the same album over and over, and I just knew that this album was going to be different, and it really was. Different than what I expected still, but the song 20s is one of Ghost's best songs in my opinion, just because it's so different from anything else. The Impera album is filled with so much unique riffage. We have Watcher in the Sky. It has one of my favorite riffs of all time. This album really has more of a glam rock, arena rock sound, sort of 80s style. Ghost has been known for doing that, but I feel like they really went hard on that on this album. It's not a very heavy album. They don't really talk about the devil and things like that as much. I feel like they're trying to get away from that a little bit and not just be known as this occult rock band. They still have that stuff hidden in the lyrics, but it's not so cut and dry in your face. They make you sort of dig deeper into the lyrics. Some people didn't like that. A lot of people were we need more Satan. I remember when this album came out, people were saying it wasn't evil enough, it wasn't black enough, whatever. But honestly, I feel like it sort of goes with the lore of Ghost. They've slowly over time become less satanic and stuff like that, and I feel like it works because they always say the smartest thing the devil could do is convince you he doesn't exist, and that's how he gets in and ruins your life. It's just all about the lore for me. I don't know. but I actually didn't mind it. I don't listen to Ghost for that reason. I mean, I don't really mind that stuff, but I just really enjoy the music. It's a very melodic album. We have fun, catchy songs like Spillways and Griftwood who just have really catchy choruses and that arena rock sound that I was talking about. There's a beautiful ballad track called Darkness at the Heart of My Love, and oh my god, that has been one of the ones that I've listened to the most. And actually, speaking of most listened to songs, Spillways was my top song on Spotify Wrapped this year. That was the #1 song I listened to hundreds of times, so I thought that was pretty cool. Next up is Motionless in White, scoring The End of the World. So I feel like I listened to this album a lot for about a month straight. I haven't listened to it much since it came out, honestly. I sort of like gave up on it, but it was really good at the time. A few of the tracks I find myself going back to listen to sometimes, but the album as a whole, something about it didn't stick with me, but I will put it in this list just because I did spend a big chunk of this year listening to this album. First off, we have Slaughterhouse, which was a really heavy track for Motionless in White. They've gotten a little less heavy over the years, but every album has at least a couple really hard-hitting songs that have mostly harsh vocals and all of that stuff, heavier breakdowns, and Slaughterhouse was awesome, and it featured Brian Garris from Knocked Loose, and his vocals in that song are awesome. I just love it. I love the lyrical content of the song, like the meaning behind the song. It's a very like emotional, raw, like middle finger to the government and just people in power in general. Oh, it's so awesome. We had Masterpiece, which when Masterpiece came out and the music video came out, I was really obsessed with it. I thought it was beautiful. I love hearing Chris Motionless singing this like ballad style, the clean vocals. Really good song, very powerful. Like I remember watching the music video obsessively for a while after it came out. We have Broadcasting from Beyond the Grave 2, I think that's what it's called. It's a really fun, like spooky, like sort of Halloween track. They had a part 1 of this song on the last album, Disguise, so it was cool to see them do that again. We have Werewolf, which has this like 80s pop vibe. It's not really a metal song at all, but it's really catchy, and they just came out with a music video for that on Halloween, and that was a really good music video. One more track that I really liked was Burned at Both Ends 2. Was that the second time they had a sequel song on this album? I don't know, but that was one of my favorites. So overall, like this album, I don't think it's like the best Motionless in White album, but overall it was pretty solid and I really enjoyed it this year. Next up is an album from a band I had never heard of before 2022. So it's Dynazty, and the album is called Final Advent. So Dynazty is a power metal band, but I would say they're like a little bit more along the lines of glam power metal or like pop power metal. It's really just got some pop vibes to it, but I love it. I consider it a guilty pleasure band, but there's no such thing as guilty pleasure. You can like whatever you like. I just think it's funny. They're kind of like Ghost in a way, but no, it's different. They are both Swedish bands, so that could be a thing. But the first song I heard from this album was The White. It is so good. The vocalist in this band, Nils Mullen, is absolutely phenomenal, and he really displays that in The White. And there's a bass solo in this song, a beautiful melodic guitar solo. That song sucked me in so hard. I found it on one of those playlists on Spotify. It's like all new metal releases on Spotify. I found it whenever that single came out, and that really made me dig deep into this band. And then their album came out shortly after, and I just got sucked in hard. Like, they make really fun, exciting music videos, and everything's just super melodic. The whole band is extremely talented. The guitar work in this band is phenomenal. They always have unique, fun guitar solos. It never sounds the same. Sometimes I get guitar solo fatigue. For example, I love Kirk Hammett, but sometimes in his songs, in Metallica songs, I'm like, do we need a guitar solo in this? It's just the same thing over and over. I don't ever feel like that with this band. They are somewhat cheesy, I will say that, but I love me some good cheese. So some of the songs I like from this album are Achilles Heel, first of all. The main riff of this song reminds me of Kashmir by Led Zeppelin mixed with Sad But True by Metallica. Of course it has its own vibes too, and the song changes throughout, but the main riff just totally reminds me of that. It's like one of their heavier songs on the album. They're not a heavy band at all, but you get a little bit of that heaviness in this song. We have Heart of Darkness. This one is so fun. This one really has the pop vibes. I would say it's more pop and glam than metal, honestly. It's got like the 80s fun, exciting I don't know, makes you want to dance kind of stuff. And there's a bridge in this song that is so good. The vocals, oh my god. Like, it is not often I find a band that I think the vocalist is this talented in. Let me tell you, Nils Molin is like way underrated. People need to be talking about him more. He features on a lot of songs, like he's been in some Ad Infinitum songs. Is that how you say that band's name? Ad Infinitum? I don't know. He's been in a Powerwolf song recently. He's really underrated. I wish more people were talking about him. One more song from this album that I've been obsessed with is Natural Born Killer. It is so catchy. This band is so good at writing catchy stuff that you'll remember. Like, you can hear it one time and you'll be singing it later. The next album of 2022 is Arch Enemy Deceivers. So with Arch Enemy, they've always been super hit or miss for me. Like, the last Arch Enemy album that I really fully got into was War Eternal. I believe that was actually Elisa's first album with Arch Enemy, if I'm not mistaken. That was really the last time I was like a super diehard Arch Enemy fan, so I wasn't really looking forward to this album all that much. And then when it came out, I was pleasantly surprised. Some of the singles I was kind of bored with, but other ones I thought it was really good. There's one song, I think it might be Handshake with Hell. Is that the one? One of them has the clean vocals from Elisa, and she never does her clean singing vocals on Arch Enemy albums. It's always the harsh death metal vocals, which I love her for. She's like the queen beast of death metal vocals, don't get me wrong. But it was cool to hear her clean vocals a little bit on this album. Arch Enemy is just always a really melodic band, and even their stuff that sort of bores me or lets me down, it's always really good. Like, Michael Abbott is still a really good songwriter no matter what, and a lot of that came through on this album. I really liked The Watcher, Sunset Over the Empire, House of Mirrors. Is probably my favorite track from this album. That's the one that I listen to over and over and over. It's like on my on repeat playlist on Spotify still to this day. It's got such a catchy chorus, and I just really think Arch Enemy is just an all-around solid band. Like, you're not going to get any bad releases from them. You're going to have things that are a little bit less exciting than others. They really always are just well put together. They're really good performers live as well. Like, I just really love this band. So the next release that we're going to be talking about actually isn't an album. It's just a couple of singles. I wouldn't even say it's actually not an EP because they didn't get released at the same time. But there is a band that I'm so excited about. A new band that I think is really going places, and I can't wait to hear more from them. We have Vended. So you've probably heard of Vended if you're a Slipknot fan. So the lead vocalist is Griffin Taylor, who is the son of Corey Taylor, vocalist of Slipknot. And the drummer in this band is Simon Crayon, and he is actually the son of Clown from Slipknot, one of the drummers in Slipknot. So it's pretty much like Slipknot Jr., right? But I feel like they get like swept under the rug a lot as just like a copy Slipknot. And while they do have a lot of Slipknot influence, obviously, I feel like they're gonna go out on their own the further that they go and the more that they mature and like get more experience with music, and I feel like they're gonna make some really good shit. Like, the two singles they came out with this year, Dead to Me and Overall, are really good. I've actually listened to those two singles from Vended more than the entire new Slipknot album, which we will talk about, but I just really like this band. I don't just listen to them because they're the sons of Slipknot. Of course, that's why I found them in the first place and went to listen to them, but now I'm actually listening to them because I genuinely like it. For example, James Hetfield's son, Castor Hetfield, is in a band, and I went to check them out and just didn't really like it that much. Wasn't my thing. That's fine. But, like, my point is, I'm not going to listen to a band just because they're the offspring of someone that I like. I think Vended is actually really good. I think they're just getting started, and the further that they go on, I think they're going to really impress us and become a name of their own without their dads attached to it. Like, Griffin has this really raw, emotional, young, just anger and angst in his vocals, and I really like that. I feel like Griffin has probably been through a lot, being the child of such a famous person, and I feel like a lot of that emotion is coming out in his songwriting, and I feel like traumatized people make the best music, so That's crazy to say, but I just feel a lot of emotion and I think it's going to be really good. So that leads me to talk about The End So Far by Slipknot. So this album, this whole thing was just such a weird experience for me. I remember when they first released the first single for this album, and I was like having mixed feelings about it. I was like kind of into it and kind of not. I didn't want to set my expectations too high because I just feel like these days, all of the bands that I've listened to for years, they kind of disappoint me every time they release something new. I don't know what it is, but I'm just like never into it as much. So I was really iffy about it. I remember the Dying song was really popular, and I didn't like the Dying song. I thought it was a really lame, like kind of like sounded like Grey Chapter era Slipknot, which I do love that album. But it just sounded a little generic, and I wasn't really excited for it. But I remember when Yen came out, I was like, holy shit, I loved that song. It had that raw, emotional Corey Taylor sound, like, felt like he was crying and wailing to us, but not in a bad way, in a good way. But anyways, when this album finally came out, I was pleasantly surprised. It wasn't like, I wasn't rating it a 10 out of 10 at the time, but like, upon my first time hearing it, I think I gave it like a 7 or a 7.5 out of 10 rating. I did like a rating for my TikTok on it, and I still kind of feel that way about it. It's not a horrible album, but it's not my favorite. I just wanted to put it on this list because I did listen to it a lot for about a month, and then I just kind of stopped. Let's see, it came out September 30th, and now it's December 6th, so yeah, it's been out for a while, but I kind of stopped listening to it like a month in. I do like some of the experimental stuff that they did on this album. So first off, we have Acidic. I think Acidic is a really nice, like, blues metal song. It's really weird. It's like Slipknot's attempt at a blues song. The two heaviest songs, in my opinion, are probably Hive Mind and H377. I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce that. Those songs were really heavy and had some of that old school Slipknot percussion, which was really nice. Warranty had a really good main riff. I thought that was a fun, more like groovy song, not so fast. For me, there were really just a lot of throwaway songs on this album. I think Yin is probably still my favorite one. It's very powerful and emotional, and it just really sticks with me. It's heavy in a way that it's emotional. It's not heavy in the way that it's like fast, you know, but it's probably my favorite one. I had to put that on the list, but I don't think this is going to be one of those albums I go back to very often other than a couple songs. And now let's talk about an EP that was released by one of my favorite bands that I discovered through TikTok this year. So the band is called Harvested, and they're from Denver, Colorado. They describe themselves as an unconventional death metal band, and they're really the kind of death metal I like. They're a little bit experimental, but they also have some of that old school sound as well. And dude, I'm blown away because these guys are really young and they're already kicking ass, and I feel like they might be the future of death metal, dead ass. Like, I've been so impressed with this band since I first heard them, and they did come out with a 4-song EP recently, and I've had it all on repeat lately. They have like different vibes on songs. Like we have Keystone Predation. It starts off with like this beautiful, like melodic, like acoustic style sound. Their song Coat Hanger, oh my god, they recently released the lyrics to that song on Spotify, and I'm just like, same as those Slaughterhouse vibes from Motionless and White, same vibes. They also have like a more easily digestible, just classic death metal song called Detritivore. I think that's how you say that, and that's the one that's just like the headbanger, got a little bit of a groove to it, you know. This was probably my favorite death metal release of the year, and I can't wait to hear more from this band. It's kind of like the same thing as Vended. I feel like they're going places and they're just getting started, and I can't wait to see what they do. And I guess more along the lines of death metal, I will mention Exhum's new album and Autopsy. I remember Skin by Skin by Autopsy was on repeat for me for a while when it first came out, but I think Harvested's Echo Side is the first death metal album that really stuck with me and I listened to on repeat, like couldn't stop. Some more honorable mentions for this year would be Spirit World's death western. Spirit World is like cowboys on crack. They make like cowboy western metal. It's it's hard to explain. It's like Slayer and Pantera, kind of like that southern metal mixed with that death thrash, but they got their own vibe too. The Nova Twins released a pretty cool album this year. Nova Twins have more of like an alternative metal style. It's not fully metal. It's kind of like new metal style, whatever, but for what it is, it's really good. Lorna Shore was like turning heads this year. Everyone was talking about Lorna Shore and Will Ramos and his vocals. They released Pain Remains this year, and for me, Lorna Shore is just a little bit repetitive. I think they're a really talented band full of extremely talented musicians. It just wasn't my cup of tea, but I do feel like I should mention it just because it felt like it was a big deal this year. One last honorable mention is Machine Head's of Kingdom and Crown. My favorite songs from this album are Choke on the Ashes of Your Hate and No Gods, No Masters. They just had that really heavy, like, kind of Slayer vibes on that album. I didn't give Machine Head much of a chance before this album came out, and this was the album that sort of made me go back and listen to their older stuff, and they're all around a really solid band. Now let's talk about Patient Number 9 by Ozzy Osbourne. So I'm just so happy that Ozzy still released a new album this year, and I love that so many talented musicians came together to help him put this thing out. I just feel so much love in Ozzy's corner. He turned 73 a couple days ago, and I just feel like people are really just on Ozzy's side, and they know that he's so passionate about songwriting and putting this stuff out. And I just felt the love when I watched the documentaries of Zakk Wylde and Chad Smith and all these people, Tony Iommi, all these people coming in to help him release this album. I feel like it's actually a kind of emotional album. Like, it has some hard-hitting tracks on it and some cool features, like different guitarists doing different guitar solos and stuff. One of my favorites was Mr. Darkness. I feel like that was a very emotional song. That one had Zakk Wylde featured on it. We had Degradation Rules, and that was featuring Tony Iommi, and it was basically Diet Black Sabbath. Like, it was pretty much a Black Sabbath song. It had that classic Tony Iommi riffage, and it was awesome. The title track, Patient Number 9, was amazing. I loved the music video too. It's so fun watching Ozzy like transform into this werewolf. Ugh, I still love him so much. God Only Knows was a really emotional ballad track, and then we had Immortal, which was like Ozzy's middle finger to death, because we did have an Ozzy death scare earlier this year in like March. Sharon was talking like Ozzy was on his deathbed and he basically wasn't going to make it much longer. He's still not doing the best right now, but he did have a surgery that sort of saved him at the time. And it felt like Immortal was like his middle finger to death, like, I'm never gonna die, like, fuck you, you can bury me, but I'll always be here. And I love that he's like sort of come to terms with it, I guess, and got to that point in his life where he's just like, I don't give a fuck. And then we had Dead and Gone, and honestly, I kind of feel like it's Ozzy's goodbye to the world, which, it sounds depressing, but like, I feel like we need an Ozzy legacy album. And like, if something does happen to Ozzy, God forbid, and he doesn't release another album before then, I think this is like a good way for him to like put out his last work to the world. And of course the album is kind of like overly produced. People say, they like talk about how he's like super auto-tuned, but I mean, it still sounds like Ozzy, and you still feel Ozzy's work. He's an amazing songwriter. He knows how to write a catchy tune. You still feel Ozzy on this album. Which reminds me, I did my makeup on this Ozzy Osbourne makeup palette today. I used the Sato color, this blue right here. Yeah, I love this thing so much. He came out with a whole makeup collection. Ozzy is my ride or die. Before we talk about my final, like, favorite album of 2022, we have to talk about Metallica's new single, Lux Eterna. Okay, I'm so happy to be in a new Metallica era. You guys don't even know. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. So the album is coming out in April 2023, which is close to my birthday. I'm so excited. And I was expecting them to release an album soon. I thought we wouldn't start hearing singles until 2023, but I love that they're ending the year with a single to get us all excited. And this new single is so fast. It has like a speed metal vibe, and James's voice is so matured, and like it's got a little bit of a raspiness to it. He did like some higher notes, which was really cool. He doesn't always do that. My overall like first impression of the track was like, it's just kind of like mid-tier. I gave it like a 3.5 out of 5 rating, and I was like, this is cool. It gets me hyped for the album. I think the album's gonna be overall good. Kind of gives me Hardwired to Self-Destruct vibe. It's actually a really catchy song though, and I've noticed myself liking it more and more every time that I listen to it. It's easily digestible. It's not too long. It's pretty simple, like it's just cut and dry. Metallica's back, baby, and I'm so excited. I feel like more of the stuff on the album is going to be a little bit more advanced. This is just going to be that radio single that comes out first to hype things up. The guitar solo on it was really weird. I don't know, I feel like it was really out of place. It sounded like a one take, like Kirk Hammett like laid out one jamming solo or whatever. He just jammed it out and then that was it. That's kind of what it sounded like. He does do that a lot sometimes. Like modern Metallica will, like James and Lars kind of write everything and they'll have everything sort of recorded and then they like invite Kirk and Rob into the studio and tell them to sort of like lay tracks on top of the tracks that are already made. So I feel like Kirk came in, slayed out a solo and left. I don't know if that's what happened, but he did do that a lot on the Hardwired album, and it shows. A lot of the solos are just kind of like passionless and like lazy, which of course he's a really skilled guitarist, so it sounds like, oh, he's really good, so this is a good solo. But I think a lot of people understand what I mean. I just felt like it was really out of place. Overall, Lux Eterna is an amazing single, great way to start off the hype for this new album. The album is going to be called 72 Seasons, and I can't wait. Everything's yellow. The freaking like album cover's yellow. It's just, we're in the yellow album era, okay? Forget the black album. This is the yellow album. Alright, so we've talked about all this new music, and now I want to talk about my favorite album of the year. Megadeth, The Sick, The Dying, and The Dead. First off, Megadeth teases this new album earlier this year with the single track, We'll Be Back. And they had this whole movie music video, like this cinematic war movie music video, which was crazy and over the top, and I feel like they really went above and beyond for this album. Before we talk about the music on this album, let's just talk about how good the lineup is. I feel like Megadeth as a band is the strongest it's been since the 90s, since the Nick Menza, Marty Freeman era. I really enjoy the drumming on this album, and I love Kiko Loureiro. He's like one of the best, most underrated guitarists. It feels like no one talks about Kiko. Everyone's always talking about Dave, blah blah blah. But Kiko really makes these albums special. He like polishes them with his magic touch. So We'll Be Back was this hard-hitting, fast, speed thrash song. It was awesome. And then they came out with some other singles like Night Stalkers. It had this random Ice-T feature on it, which was weird, but I mean, it wasn't bad by any means. We had Soldier On, which was just this really nice, uplifting, kind of simple track. But every single they released, I was like, I'm gonna love this album. And I was right. I really loved the album. After the album came out, my favorite songs were Life in Hell, Dogs of Chernobyl. I love the lyrics of that. It's a catchy song. Mission on Mars, or Mission to Mars, whatever, I can't remember, but I love that song so much. It has a Rust in Peace reference. The whole thing just has like Rust in Peace, Hangar 18 vibes, this alien stuff. It's so silly, but I love it. We had a really fun Dead Kennedys cover. They covered Police Truck, and I just love hearing Dave's like punk side. It's so fun. I thought it was really cool, and Dave's always been a Dead Kennedys fan. There's pictures of him in the 80s wearing Dead Kennedys shirts, so it was just cool to hear that. They also had a Sammy Hagar feature singing The Planet's on Fire. That was really cool. So that was like a cover slash feature. It was amazing. Overall, I feel like the lyrics were really strong on this album. Of course the music was. Like I said, they have the best lineup they've had in years. Just really fast, hard-hitting, impeccable music. A lot of people talked bad about Dave Mustaine's voice on this album, but I mean, he did just have throat cancer and he's 60 years old, and I don't think it was that bad. It almost gives it more character. Like, I don't want every singer to be completely polished and have perfect vocal cords and super produced and all this stuff. Like, I like Dave Mustaine's vocals. I actually always have. I understand why some people don't, but it did it for me on this album. It didn't bother me whatsoever. This album will go down in history. It's actually one of my favorite Megadeth albums now. I really liked Dystopia. It was like modern Megadeth. It was like this new Megadeth, and I really thought it would be like my favorite. I think this album actually may have beaten Dystopia by a little bit. I would say the two albums that I've listened to the most this year were Impera by Ghost and The Sick, The Dying, and The Dead by Megadeth. So those two were actually both nominated for the Best Rock Album of the Year or Best Metal Album for the Grammys. And I don't know who I want to win because they both had a huge impact on my year, and they're both really just solid albums that I think I'm going to be listening to forever. But that's all for my favorite music releases of rock and metal in 2022. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite releases were this year. What did you like? What didn't you like? And yeah, I guess that's all. So thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!